call from an old college friend wanting to hang out. I hadn't seen him in a long time, so I was excited just to see him. And so he and I go, we sit down, we have an incredible meal, and for the next couple of hours, we just laugh and we tell stories and we ask about so-and-so and what they're doing and all these things. And I remember it being such a really fun, refreshing night until the check's about to come and his tone sort of shifts. And he then proceeds to say, I want to talk to you about why I asked you to get dinner. And I thought we were just hanging out, catching up. He then proceeds to try to sell me life insurance. And I remember leaving that dinner, like one, an hour later than I ever thought, but two, very annoyed because we had very different ideas of the purpose of why we were meeting up. And I tell you that because few things in the world are more frustrating than not being on the same page about why you're gathering. And I think that's so important because that frustration isn't void in the church as well, right? People in the church have the exact same frustration. For instance, if you came from a church where the small group structure was built around education, right? And you come into a group and instead you get friends, you might be a little annoyed, right? Or on the flip side, if you come from a church where you gather to find community and friends and bridesmaids and groomsmen and all that stuff, right? But then you actually end up in a group where someone parses out Greek verbs all night, you might also be annoyed, right? The purpose of why we gather is very, very important. So as we enter into this new series on knowing and being known, let me just clarify for us what we're doing here, the purpose of our gathering. We are here to grow, period. If there's any question about why we are gathering in these groups, it's because we believe that these groups have the ability to be your biggest catalyst for growth. Like our hope is that in December, you and I look way more like Jesus then than we do right now. And the reason is because Christian community, biblical community, is uniquely designed for growth. Let me show you what I mean. In Hebrews chapter 10, verses 24 through 25, it says this. It says, let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. I love this text because it shows that biblical community is uniquely different from every other type of community in the world. When you think about why most people gather, it's usually around a common interest, right? We gather to cheer on our favorite team. We gather to network. We gather to read a book by our favorite author. We gather to LARP. We gather to do whatever it is that you are into. But when we as the people of God gather, our gatherings are centered on stirring each other up to love and good works, to encourage one another. Our groups are uniquely built for growth. So our hope this semester is that God transforms your life in some pretty profound ways through the people that you are sitting around. But I want to point out one more thing that we see in this passage before we break out in the time for discussion. And the second thing I want to point out is this. It's that growth is painful. The growth is painful. The author of Hebrews points out that some people have neglected to meet. They are no longer in the habit of meeting. And what I've seen to be true over the years is that when we feel the pain of growth, when we feel how uncomfortable growth actually is, we tend to distance ourselves from gathering, right? Because we all like the idea of growth in theory. We all like the idea of getting stronger or running a marathon or becoming a better boss, a better friend, all these things. But when we realize that growth is painful, we tend to just kind of bail on it, right? A mentor of mine a while ago asked a lady at the grocery store when she thought New Year's resolutions come to an end. And she immediately said 6 weeks. And he said, why? And she said, because that's when we stop selling kale. And the reality is that is an illustration that I think is so important for us because maybe you are entering into this group kind of like a New Year's resolution, where right now you are eager and you are excited and you want to grow and you want God to do just some incredible stuff in your life. But odds are there's going to be a moment in time this semester where things start to hurt, right? Where growth kind of has this discomfort attached to it. And in those moments in time, you might be tempted to bail. You might be tempted to quit. If that's you, I want to challenge you to allow the words of Hebrews 10 to be something that allows you to stay the course, that you don't neglect meeting, but rather you gather to stir each other up to love and good works, to encourage each other all the more as the day draws near.